What's going on, guys? So as you can see in the background is yet another Jeep. Now this one, I don't know if I filmed the last LJ that I had in here, but this is an LJ, and what that means is basically the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. They made them from 03 to 06 or 04 to 06, somewhere in that area. They gave you 6 more inches of space behind the door, which gives you a rear seat and cargo room. So it was super convenient. They didn't really sell all that well, and there wasn't a whole bunch of them out there, but we do see them. So I figured we'd film this one because I don't think I actually filmed a frame repair on an LJ. It is a little bit different than the TJ. Similar in a lot of ways, but the frame pieces don't come in one piece. They actually come in 2 separate pieces. So you have the center section, then the rear section. And then we have a few other odds and ends that we need to do with this thing as well. But before we get that started, filming in a new little realm here. So originally we were filming in 4K, 30 frames a second, which the GoPro that we're filming on handled wonderfully. However, I really like the way 60 frames a second looks, but filming on the GoPro in 4K 60 frames just completely nukes the battery in like an hour, if that. I barely get any footage out of it. And then it's a little bit harder to edit. My computer's not the newest, so we're at 1080p, 60 frames a second. Hopefully this looks a little bit better. I won't have the same zooming abilities that I always had, but I think overall it's going to be a much better experience. So with that being said, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Ooh, excuse me. And we're going to move on to this Jeep, and I'll show you some of the other little weird issues and some of the issues that we have with it. Alright, so this particular one is a 2004 Jeep Wrangler LJ, which is the extended version. We have the optional mouse house installed in the hood, and the optional acorns and nuts on the intake manifold, so we're gonna have to take care of that. We also have the corrosion-laden headlight connectors, so headlights are also optional. We gotta fix that. And then the majority of the problem is back here, as usual. We have Bluetooth control arms installed and ready to go. These are all the rage, so you should probably go pick some of those up. So in typical fashion, we're dealing with another Northeast Jeep. This one happens to be a vehicle that the customer doesn't use all that often. He just kind of has fun with it in the summertime, and you know, uses it every now and then occasionally in the winter, so it just sits most of the time. Hence why we've got all the rot and rust and everything else that we do. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to fix the headlights, because we've got to get these working, because right now all these guys are a switch connected to the fog lights, which you can turn the fog lights on and kind of use them as headlights. So turns out that both of these bulbs are actually blown, on top of the connectors being rotted. So we're going to replace both of those connectors, replace both the headlights, and he will have headlights. Now the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put this thing up on the lift. We're going to get the wheels off of it, and we're going to assess the damage to the frame. We already have all the pieces for it and everything, so let's get moving. Alright, so now that we got this thing up in the air, I wanted to go over with you guys some of the differences between the 97 to 02 TJ and the 03 to 06 TJ, because there were some pretty significant changes in those years. So 97 to 02 had drum brakes in the rear, minus the spiders, and the 03 to 06 has disc brakes in the rear. The next thing is the skid plate. The transfer case skid plate on the 97 to 02 has a cutout right here that runs over to the other side to compensate for the muffler. In the 03 to 06, they didn't do that any longer, and the skid plate is straight, and it actually sits further back on the frame than the original skid plate does on the 97 to 02. These also have another cross member right here with a skid plate directly under the transmission. Because these were moved back, they had to do something here to protect the transmission, so they added this extra skid plate. So that's another difference on the 03 to 06. Then when we come to the front, the steering box. 97 to 02 had a Saginaw steering box, which was used in the Jeep Wranglers for years and years and years. In '03, with the acquisition of Daimler Chrysler, they actually switched to a Mercedes-based steering box and changed the frame horn to accommodate the much smaller Mercedes steering box. So those are the major differences: the steering box, the skid plate and the skid plate location, the disc brakes in the rear, and a few other little odds and ends here and there on the interior, but for the most part, those were the major differences. All right, and so the difference between the LJ and the TJ frame is right here. Literally this section right here. There's about 6 inches extra, or maybe a little bit more. There might be about 8 inches extra right in here. And in the TJ, if you can see this little cutout right here, turn the light on. This little cutout right here is designed to fit underneath this bracket right here. So you can see from that point to that point is how much longer the LJ frame is than the TJ frame. So when we do this back section here, that'll be one piece that goes up to here, and then our center section will continue from here like it always does all the way up front. And as per usual, you know, this frame outward appearances, you could obviously see that this was completely rotted through. But when you moved up front, it looked halfway decent. You had a little bit of surface rust, a little bit of scale in here. Then you go underneath it. And that right there is literally everything that came out from between the skid plate and the frame. So pretty gnarly. So now we just got the exhaust cut off of it like we do on all these. We'll get the exhaust out of it, and then we'll start chopping into the frame and getting that apart. And then we can start moving on to you know, cleaning this thing up and welding everything back in again. All right, so I also forgot to mention that on the LJs too, this section right here is a little bit longer. So on a TJ, the fuel tank, which is right here, mounts to the rearmost cross member. In the LJ, there's a cross member about 6 inches further forward. So overall, you get 6 inches back here, 6 inches up there, 12 inches total in the body, which gives you a nice rear seat plus all sorts of cargo room in the back. It's actually a nice little Jeep, and these things look sick when they're lifted too. All right, guys, so like I was telling you before, the LJs actually come in 4 separate pieces. These are the 2 rear pieces with the control arm mounts on them, and those, as you can tell, have an extension that's about a foot long or so. And then there's the center sections, which also fit just the regular 03 to 06 Wrangler. You don't need anything different for those, but where the extension happens is obviously between that control arm mount and the front there, and that'll take up the rear. Now when we move over to the vehicle, and you'll have to pardon the fan noise, I just painted those, so I'm trying to get the fumes out, but you'll notice that we supported the rear of the vehicle. Now I already went ahead and measured the frame side to side to make sure everything was straight. And surprisingly, this one's straight. So we put one little, you know, pull jack in the middle here to hold the frame up, because with the extra length, what'll tend to happen is as we start cutting on this frame, it's going to want to dip and sag and bend and all kinds of other stuff. So we want to make sure that we're keeping it where we're keeping it. And I will take a measurement here to the floor, we'll cut the frame, and then we're going to see if that measurement changed, and if it did, we can adjust it with pull jacks and make sure we put it back where it was. Now with this one, we're not going to cut the entire frame out all at once like we normally do with a regular TJ, because again, this frame is longer and it'll have a tendency to bend and bow and all kinds of crap. So we're going to start with this rear section. We're going to cut out what we need to cut out here, and we'll cut it right up to this body mount. Once we get it cut up to the body mount, we will fit this rear piece in, we'll weld the rear piece in, then we'll cut the front section, and we'll do the same thing on both sides. And that'll alleviate or minimize any of the bending and flexing and all the other crap that the frame likes to do. So we're gonna get to cutting this side out, and I'll bring you guys back and show you. All right, so that side is all welded in. And you can see how far forward it actually comes right up under this body mount. So now that we have this thing fully welded in, we don't have to worry about this section of the frame actually drooping or breaking or anything like that. And now we can go ahead and get to the rest of the frame, which is that whole section. And once we get that cut out, we'll put the other piece on, and then we're going to go ahead and attach it to the one that we just put on, and we should be good. And I'll show you something kind of cool about how we're going to attach these 2 pieces so that we have the strength of one solid piece. Now we got this side all burned in. That was rather enthusiastic. Apologize for that. But what I was telling you before is this is where these two pieces meet. Right here. You can see there's just a T-joint there. So what I do is there's a tab on the center section piece. That tab is supposed to meet up with this bracket on the factory TJ. So this would be that much shorter, and you could run it into the factory bracket, tack it up, and weld it into there to support this bracket. However, what I do is I bend it down, weld everything in, and then I bend it back up, and I weld it almost like a little fish plate, and it just ties this bottom section together even better. And notice a drain hole. And there's another drain hole in there. Probably can't see it, but it's in there, I promise you. But yeah, so we did the same that we normally do. We got our plate on the inside, plate on the outside, and these plates actually just tie in this mount here because this mount is known for failing and also coming off of the frame. So by tying it in up high on the frame with this larger piece of steel, we're gonna alleviate that wanting to come out of here, and it'll also you know, give it a lot more strength. And then of course we tie it in underneath as well, and then we tie it in at the body mounts, and that is pretty much it for this whole section. And we're going to do the other side exactly the same way. So we're going to take and put some primer inside here and just to the areas we can't get to. Then we're going to bolt the suspension back up on this side. We'll go over to the other side, unbolt the suspension from over there, and then we'll just do the exact same thing on the other side. Now, the other side is a little bit more difficult in the fact that you have all of these lines. You have your fuel lines, your evap lines, you got your brake line, fuel return, and a few other odds and ends. And we can just pop these all off of here and pop the clips, and then we can reuse those when we put the caps over top of it. But just kind of a pain in the butt to get these out, pull them back, and, you know, kind of work with them. So we got some areas over here that we're gonna have to kind of take care of. And then you'll notice on this side, from the factory, they have this brace right here, and I don't know why they did that. I'll have to try to find out. But these originally were prone to cracking up here, so that may be why they did the brace on this one. And it was always the driver's side, and it was just due to the fact that the steering box is on this frame rail, and it would crack right about there. So they put this brace here. So we're gonna have to go and figure out if this section is good, and then potentially make a piece of steel to go in here and weld these two together so that we can sandwich these and make it much stronger. So we're gonna get onto that, but for the most part, guys, this side is exactly the same as the other side. And just like that, we got both sides done. Of course, they go pretty fast when you're not stopping halfway in between to film them, but I got that one done. I hope you guys enjoyed the time lapse of me doing the passenger side over there, but you can see on this side we did the same thing with that little tab where we bent that tab down, and then let's get some light on there. There we go. Bent the tab down and then used it as kind of a little tie-in fish plate to make sure that this one was tied to that one. And again, welded it fully all the way around. Everything is good to go. And now, truthfully, we went and poked around a little bit in this section, and we still got excellent metal in this section, so we don't have to do anything on this side because it is still 100%. And all those cobwebs. It's insane. So now, the last thing that we're going to do is we're literally going to take the needle scaler, and we're just going to clean all this frame up and get all of this scaly rust off of it. I checked all this stuff, and it's all still very thick. It's just got some scale on it. So we're going to descale all of that. We're going to descale these. We're going to descale, you know, whatever else we can get our hands on. And then we're just going to treat this frame with a little bit of primer, a little bit of paint, and it's going to look amazing. And then what we'll do too is, yeah, you can see there's a lot of scaly, just crap rust here that, you know, will come right off. The metal's still good, but we'll seal this thing up, and then we'll recommend that our customer uses a nice dose of fluid film to coat the whole underside of this thing, because it is just a, I don't know, I want to say like a play vehicle. It's not something that he drives 100% of the time, so it does sit in his yard a lot. So coating it with fluid film all underneath is going to stop or, you know, slow down all of this, you know, scaly rust that keeps happening on this thing. But so now all we got to do is put this sucker back together. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I wanted to give you a little bit more in depth. I think we did an LJ not too long ago, but I don't know that I got that far in depth with it. So I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of what it's like to work on the LJ versus the 97 to 02 Wranglers or the 03 to 06 Wranglers. Just a little bit different. 4 pieces instead of 2, you know, a little bit more welding, a little bit longer frame, a little bit more bracing needed just so that the frame doesn't bend and tweak and everything else. But we managed to ruin another shirt, so that's awesome. I gotta find a welding jacket. If you guys know of a good welding jacket that's designed for welding overhead, please let me know down in the description, in the comments. Down in the comments, let me know if you know of a welding jacket that literally will stop me from burning the crap out of every part of my body all the time. Because I've tried 3 different jackets so far, and I either catch them in the armpit or I catch them in the wrist. I just burnt my wrist again in the same spot for the 3rd time. I mean, it's killing me. Anyway, we will have another video very soon. We got a bunch more Jeeps going. We got a neat little car coming pretty soon that we're going to be doing some work on. You guys will see that video probably in a couple of weeks. And yeah, so hope you guys are enjoying. The weather's getting nice. It's finally cool and comfortable in the Northeast. And I don't know what else to say. So enjoy yourselves, everybody. Have a wonderful day.